title of today's conference was Innovation for Lotteries. What do you think the key issues were which came out of the discussions today?
I think people realizing the size of the market. So you have two things in the lottery business. You have 80% approval in most lottery jurisdictions in the United States, but you only have 9 to 12% consistent play. So the gap between those who are your core audience and your potential audience is that potential. And hopefully today people, after spending the day going through the sessions, had a better idea about that market potential.
Do you think, do lotteries perceive themselves as being part of the gambling sector in the same way that bingo doesn't see itself as being gambling, for example, in the UK?
Well, I always say that I don't consider 185 million to 1 odds as being a gamble, but lotteries are a very different form of gambling as opposed to casinos or most other forms. In a lottery, you risk a small amount of money, very small, $1, $2, against very long odds to win a very large prize, with the net proceeds going to the common good because lotteries are controlled by government. Other forms of gambling aren't that. Usually other forms of gambling offer you odds you think you can overcome and give you a continuous series, basically, of rapid opportunities to try to overcome those odds. And that's why lotteries are so popular in the public consciousness as opposed to casino gambling.
What do you think the deal is for in terms of the way in which a customer will engage with a lottery? Is it, are you selling that dream? Are you selling a kind of a piece of fantasy?
Well, again, I think that's exactly what a lottery is all about. I mean, it is that, before governments were strong enough to be coercive where they could enforce taxation, they had to raise money somehow, and they used to use lotteries. And the idea was not that you were going to win, it was that you had a fair chance of winning. So if you choose to participate, you have as much a chance as the Lord Mayor of London to win a lottery. And you also hopefully believe, as he would, that if you lose, the money is going to something that you think is important.
Do you think the proportion of monies which go to good causes, do you think that's a manifestation of governments trying to chase a budget deficit and trying to fund social programs?
Well, again, that's beyond my area of responsibility other than as a citizen. I think the ideal of a lottery, that governments use something that's voluntary to raise money for something, is a good one. Those lotteries that have something very specific that the money goes to, such as in the Georgia lottery, the money going to scholarships for every student in Georgia that graduates from high school with a B average and above gets a free ride to college. Something that specific makes a lottery, I think, healthier. In Illinois, it's a bit murkier. I mean, the money goes to the Common School Fund. Well, what does that mean? It goes to bridges and roads. Well, that's a little bit more specific. But then we have a couple of games which are real brand leaders to define what our lottery is all about. We have a game where all the proceeds go to help veterans. We have a game that all the proceeds go to breast cancer research. Another game that all the proceeds go to multiple sclerosis research. Another one which goes into AIDS awareness. Now, those specific cause games attract a lot of people who don't normally play the lottery or wouldn't even have known about the lottery until we started to promote these special cause games. And I think that again is one of those differentiations between lotteries and every other form of gambling.
Being slightly political here,
Mm-hmm.
in the UK, some of the criticisms of Camelot, for example, is that Camelot allows governments to abrogate their responsibilities for social funding. So some of the opponents of lotteries would suggest that actually that's the government's job to fund AIDS awareness or whatever. Well, how would you respond to that?
Well, I would say that as a citizen, I am incredibly befuddled by the Stockholm syndrome of identifying with one's captors by saying we're not taxed enough. I certainly feel in Illinois I am taxed enough. I just paid for my monthly telephone bill and discovered that 1/3 of it is taxes. So the decisions on where government money goes are governments to decide. The decisions on how much to tax are governments to decide. The idea of a lottery remains unsullied and pure. I mean, you can decide to protest against your government by not playing the lottery. You cannot decide to protest against your government by not paying your taxes.
If you look at lotteries throughout the world, is there obviously putting the Illinois one to one side for a second, is there one which you regard as being kind of the standard bearer for the industry, one that everyone aspires to being as good as? I mean, for example, where would Camelot fit into the league table of international lotteries?
I think Camelot ranks very high. I think it's a very interesting experiment that the United Kingdom went into, and And I think it's very interesting that Camelot has almost won a privatization contract in the United States because they're a pure marketing company. Most of the companies surrounding the lottery business, the big ones, are operational companies. They're like knives and forks. I mean, if you're going to have a restaurant, you need a knife and you need a fork, but they're not chefs. I mean, Camelot is more of a chef. Lottomatica, a company that runs half of the Italian lottery, are a bunch of consumer marketing guys. I mean, they're marketing people, and they have the responsibility of running a lottery. They're chefs. I think the more the lottery industry or governments recognize that it's the chef that makes the lottery, not the person who makes the knife and the fork, the more healthy lotteries will be.
Some people might perceive lotteries as being, slightly dusty, slightly dull. How would you respond to that critique?
Well, I heard the same critique over 2,000 years ago. I mean, because lotteries are that old. I think any product becomes dusty and becomes unimaginative if it's not marketed correctly. But I mean, essentially, when you think of a lottery, when I think of a lottery, I think that a lottery should be giving away prizes you can't get anyplace else. As in our veterans game in Illinois, where you can play and all the money goes to help veterans, we always had just a $20,000 top prize. Well, it's a game for veterans. It involves the United States military. I think the top prize should be landing a jet on a carrier. Now, if the lottery gave away as a top prize landing a jet on a carrier, I think it would attract a lot more people to playing a game, which the ultimate benefit is programs that help veterans. So dustiness, being kind of old-fashioned, that is an indictment of marketing. It's not an indictment of the lottery.
I think it'd be useful if you could break down the component parts of what constitutes a good lottery or a successful lottery.
Well, I don't think it's even component parts. I think a well-run lottery is one in which a lot of people play a little bit, not one in which the same people play a lot. And I think that's a line in the sand that you can draw. So a lottery whose marketing ethos is to match that 80% approval with 80% play will increase its sales exponentially. A lottery which continues to try to sell more product to the same people, at best, is dealing in arithmetic.
Final question. What's your reflections on the fact that the world's biggest gaming show is now in Europe and not in the States?
Is it? Is this larger than the WLA?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to come to London in February.